One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. New Eastern Michigan Athletic Director Scott Wetherbee is on One Question. He's house hunting in the Ypsilanti area, and thanks for carving out some time, Scott. I want to start with a pretty interesting question that I don't think I've asked of any new ADs, and I've certainly talked to a number here on One Question. But when you got done with your final interview, and I'm going to assume you had a general idea of where you were in the progression of candidates who were presented in front of the committee, what was your mindset between the point of which you walked out of the room and when you finally heard word that you were the selection and you accepted the job? Is that a really interesting mental challenge for candidates? And was it for you that you're going, okay, I wonder what's going to happen next?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a crazy, probably 48 hours or so. I knew I was candidate number 3 on my itinerary. And I had heard that there was 4 candidates, so I came in on a Thursday, and I assumed that there was a 4th candidate on Friday. And so when through that process, you get done, I called my wife and I said, well, I think things went really well, and I'm going to go look at houses and look at schools while I'm here. And so I stayed an extra day just in case. But I felt really good. And I said, if I don't get it, somebody's done a really good job, because I felt that I was prepared. And I also felt like there was a good connection with the president, with the committee, and just felt really good when the end of the day came. So when that happened, you just kind of, all of a sudden you pray a lot and say, is this it? And then you start to kind of prep yourself if the time does come where they're going to give you a call.
Where were you physically when you got the call? Specifically, where were you?
Yeah, so I was actually in church on Sunday, and we were actually having a going away for our worship pastor. And so it was kind of actually an emotional day at church a little bit, and he had been there 6 years. And then to get a text from Parker, Daniel, and he said, hey, the president's going to call you in a few minutes. You need to answer the phone. And I texted him back and said, I'm in the middle of church. Can he wait about 20 minutes to call me? And so we set it up. So he called me as I was finishing up church service. So I was actually standing outside of our church, and my kids had no idea why is Daddy outside talking on the phone for 15, 20 minutes with the president. And we had not told our kids, so I actually got the job because I didn't want to lead them astray.
Interesting. So now that you've been through your press conference, how much of what you researched about the institution and the athletic department that you expressed to the hiring committee can you actually put into an actionable format for, your early strategic next steps? Call it the first 90-day plan.
Yeah, so I've built out a kind of a 60-day plan of things that I wanted to accomplish. And it's kind of hard when you're still back in Mississippi and trying to transition up. But I did make calls to some of our top donors. I've reached out to all of our head coaches. So I kind of had that plan in place to start that process. And then now I'm working on, okay, I'm going to be in Ypsilanti on July 17th. And when I get there, I want to start my round of meetings with everybody, have an all-staff meeting just to kind of introduce and get to know people. And then I want to do a lot of listening. I'm not going to go in and Heather and Christian, and they left the place in a really good spot. So really one of my primary focuses will be on hiring a gymnastics coach and then doing a lot of listening in the department.
What have you said to the senior staff that's there on the type of items that you do want to be in the loop on right now? Clearly you can't be in touch with everything in this transitionary period, but I'm sure there's some certain things you said, hey, keep me abreast of this type of development. What are those things?
Yeah, pretty much. Obviously, if there's anything student-athlete related that I need to be aware of or something's going on, but it's just a good time of year actually to transition. A lot of people are away, the 4th of July holiday right now. So really I'm more focused on making sure I'm connecting with donors and getting to know them and start building that relationship. But also if we have any compliance issues, or if we're having trouble getting anybody into school, or we're having really any little hot buttons that maybe come up, because you just never know when things pop up. You're always on in athletics. So Erin Keto, who is the interim right now, has done a great job of, she calls or texts me just about every day, and we just kind of stay in touch, and she lets me know what's happening on campus and if there's anything else I need to be aware of. And then they're working on actually a really nice transition booklet for me that has all the contracts, has a lot of our donors in their bios, has all of our coaches in their bios, and just everything. So when I walk in a week and a half here, then I'll know exactly, who's where, who's what, who I should talk to. And so we're working on those things as we transition through. So right now I don't have a lot of hot buttons. Obviously getting a gymnastics coach. We posted the position and are taking applications right now, and we're going to get that going as quickly as possible.
So when John Cohen became AD at Mississippi State, of course, he probably already knew pretty well the landscape of who was who and what was what in Starkville. So a little different than what you're walking into. But what did he do, or what has he done very, very early in his tenure that you want to replicate?
Well, I think he's done a really good job with the head coaches of really getting in front of them and talking to them and seeing what some of their needs are, and not being afraid to kind of maneuver people around a little bit. He has looked at our org chart, and he has slotted people where he thought maybe they could benefit a little more in certain areas, and so go to their strengths. And so those are something that, when I come in and start listening and hearing what people are saying, if somebody's really strong in one area and not so much in another, maybe we'll do a little shifting and make it so they're great at something as opposed to being spread thin and only being good. So we'll work on that, and we've done that over my time at Mississippi State. You get people in, they work hard, but sometimes they're slotted better in a different area, and we'll kind of work on that. But I'm just excited to get here and start to meet everybody and get to know personalities and their families and kind of get ingrained here.
Last question. Who else around the industry are you talking to, or what other examples of first-time ADs have you read about or studied up on to understand maybe some, and I hate this term, best practices, but best practices for your early tenure?
Yeah, I would say my 60-day template kind of came from Ren Baker at North Texas. I know he had went through this about a year ago. And then, I've actually been on the phone with Lee DeLeon at Abilene Christian and just talked to him a little bit about the process. And my good friend Bob Moosebrugger at Bowling Green, we talk just about every day. So he's sharing some of the MAC knowledge as well. And then just talking to John Cohen, and then being able to call Scott Strickland whenever I want and know that he's there for me to help. That certainly helps as well. So I've got, 4 or 5 athletic directors that have all kind of changed hands here in the last year and a half, so they can help me with the transition and things to expect so I don't have too many surprises.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.